From our discussion, it is clear there are a spectrum of devices in the market and the sound quality and benefits for each differ. So it would be great to discuss the work you're doing at HearAdvisor to help both providers and end users navigate this complex market of products.
Sure, I'd love to speak about HearAdvisor. So this is a passion project that has grown to just be quite a fun, very fun part of my life. And it's a small team right now. It's myself. There's Dr. Abram Bailey, who is the founder and owner of Hearing Tracker, which is just a fantastic online resource. And then there's also Dr. Andy Zabin, who is a hearing scientist at Bose right now. And independently, we all had thoughts on these issues that we've been discussing. That we have all these different products. There is a lot of misinformation out there. Consumers might look at two different products, let's say one off of Amazon. You can purchase it for $100, and you can look at a $6,000 device with a big name brand behind it, being sold by an audiologist, and both products will say the same thing. They make speech clear, and they help with background noise.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
That's a hard price gap to kind of stomach when they're both claiming the same thing. So we set out to try and mitigate this and just provide more information. So what HearAdvisor is we're an independent test lab. And we're trying to reduce the confusion surrounding hearing technologies and their overall performance and provide information then that is understandable to the average person. So we have sound samples as well. And this was a big part of it for all of us as well. Like, my background is in music, and it has always disturbed me in this world of hearing sciences. You know, growing up, if I wanted a new guitar, I could go to the store and I could try a Gibson, I could try a Fender. If I wanted an ESP, I could pick them up, I could feel them, how they play, how they sound, and you can't do that in hearing sciences or with in the world of audiology. And it's arguably much more important because this is a medical device that can improve your quality of life. So we are also providing sound samples for that. We have tested around 40 products right now, and that's across OTC, prescription, hearable technologies, and we've done this in our custom-built lab. The way that we're testing, we're doing everything we possibly can to make this as scientific as we can, as possible. So we're using validated metrics from the hearing sciences literature. We are sometimes using listening tasks for ourselves, but it's always double blind, so we don't even know what we're listening to, and we'll do an average across all of us. And the way we're creating these sound samples is we have a speaker array in this lab, and the speaker array is able to present realistic sound scenes.
Right.
And we use what are called ambisonic recordings. Ambisonic recordings are a specialized audio format that are speaker agnostic, meaning you can go into a cafe with a specialized microphone and make a recording of that cafe. Now, if you decode that ambisonic cafe recording in our lab and you sit in the center of the speaker ring, from an acoustic standpoint, it is as close as possible to you sitting in the actual cafe. So
okay.
The beauty of this is, like, when I'm in the lab and I'm listening to these different scenes, like, the illusion is definitely there. It feels like I'm in that environment. And then we have different audio skits that we've recorded ourselves for 1, 2, and 3 talker scenes, and we're able to play those through the different speakers and emulate as close as possible what it would be like for an individual to be sitting in a cafe, listening to different people speaking, a library, an office, a noisy restaurant, a street, a church. And those are then the recordings that we analyze and provide to everyone, not just consumers, providers as well, to make comparisons across.
Fantastic. Thanks for explaining how, the setup and how you do the test. I'd love to understand, how do you score these devices? What metrics do you use for that?
Absolutely. It gets very confusing because there are quite a few, and we have different listening or fitting rationales, but we have 5 different metrics or points of comparison. And these are based on what individuals with hearing loss, they're the common complaints. So there's speech and quiet, speech benefit in quiet or moderately loud environments, speech benefit in loud environments. There is feedback, so how volatile are the devices? Do they squeak on you or squeal? There is annoyance with your own voice. Anyone who's worn a hearing aid or an earplug, they've experienced the boominess that your voice can, the boomy sound quality your voice will take on when you plug up your ear canal. And then last is audio streamed quality. So 5 metrics: speech and quiet, speech and noise, feedback, own voice boominess, and then streamed audio quality. And across those 5 metrics, we have 2 fitting rationales. So we have an initial fit. You can think of this as like an out-of-the-box testing. So if you get a set of Apple AirPods Pro, you bring them home, you unbox them, you follow the onboarding, you connect them to your phone, you go through the test, all of that. How do they perform across those 5 different conditions? So that is what most people will experience for both over-the-counter devices and prescription devices. So for a prescription device out of the box, it means, sure, you still go to an audiologist. However, they just follow manufacturer recommendations. There is no fine-tuning or real-ear measurements. And again, that is what the vast majority of people experience, unfortunately, in their hearing journey. Now, the second fitting rationale is a tuned one. Now, this is, I put on my audiologist hat and I perform real ear measurements, observing the output of our acoustic mannequin, which I neglected to mention, but we do have an industry standard mannequin, KEMAR, in the center of those rings, and we're able to monitor the sound entering, basically being picked up inside the artificial eardrums of the mannequin. So we program it for a specific hearing loss, which is a very common high-frequency, moderate sloping hearing loss. And once we have the recordings done, again, 5 metrics, 2 fitting rationales, then we analyze each one of those in a slightly different way. So speech and quiet and speech and noise, we evaluate it using a metric that predicts, that is predictive of the impaired auditory system, and it predicts the percent words correct an individual might get across those 72 scenes. So it does account for an individual with hearing loss. That is known as HASP, Hearing Aid and Speech Perception Index, and we're using the second version of that. We use that for those first 2 conditions. We estimate sound quality for streaming using a similar model, which is Hacky. We estimate the own voice boominess based on the real ear occluded response and different kind of standard objective measures, audiologic measures. And then for the evaluating feedback, that's where I mentioned that we'll actually listen to different conditions of, me moving my hands past the pinna of KEMAR or even cupping it, and then we rate it. Rate those sound samples based on that. So there's a lot that goes into it, but 5 metrics across 2 different fitting rationales, and then there's a weighting across those to provide different numbers for individuals.
Brilliant. Well, thanks for explaining that to us. So you mentioned the 5 different metrics. As I understand, you also have an overall sound performance score, the HearAdvisor score, as you call it. Could you explain how that works?
Sure. So our sound score, obviously, after that long discussion I just had, or long description, there's a lot of information. It can be very confusing, and we do provide that information if you wish to do a deep dive. However, we ran a survey and had over 100 responses from hearing care professionals and over 100 responses for individuals with hearing loss, rating the importance of those 5 different conditions: speech and noise, quiet, own voice, streamed, and feedback. And then based on those responses from all those hearing care professionals and individuals with hearing loss, we have a weighted average across those metrics, and then the initial setting and the tuned setting. So all of that goes into creating a single sound score, is what we call it, which is just a single number for individuals to compare these devices, to just make it easier, thinking of like shooting from the hip, all that information, what's one number that is as representative as possible as the device's performance.
It sounds like you've really designed this to make it digestible for everyone so that they can actually, deep dive into the detail. You've got the overall score as well, and actually identify the product that could be right for the particular patient. So that's amazing. It'll be great to understand. I know you've tested a number of products. It'll be great to understand how many you've tested and more details about those top performing ones. I understand you have something called the HearAdvisor Expert Choice Award. It'll be great if you could tell us a bit more about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and to your previous comment, the whole goal, what's the point of having all this information if it's not digestible? You might as well just publish research papers, and that will never find its way into the consumer's hands, because we already have those now. But yes, our goal is to make digestible information understandable for everyone, consumers, professionals. And a means of taking it one step further with the sound score, once we had that, we narrowed it down to 13 top products. And again, that wasn't just an opinion. We actually used a just noticeable difference on that scale of 1 to 5 for these different products. And we released the HearAdvisor Expert Choice Awards. And these are the devices that performed best out of the 40 some odd devices we've tested, and there were only 13 that received the award. So it wasn't like a give out to everything. The goal was really to say, like, all right, we've done all this testing, there are lots of products, which ones will most people perform best with or receive the greatest benefit from? And the goal of this is, if you see the award, it's kind of like a stamp of approval that we have done everything that we can to test these products using science, using our knowledge, and these are the ones that we found to be best. So as we've discussed today, there are many, many technologies. It is very confusing. So hopefully then this can be a trusted signpost of a product's efficacy.
And how do you think this will allow providers and end users to make better decisions?
Let's start with consumers or individuals with hearing loss first. Again, it improves their agency and their ability to consume unbiased information. Because we're an independent lab, we're not owned by a hearing aid company, so it's not like we're favoring one. All the information or all the data, it is very objective, so our preferences are removed from that. So consumers can listen to sound samples, get a very clear sense subjectively of how one device sounds compared to another. They can use the sound score, they can dive deeper with the 5 different metrics and see how it performs, and it just gives them the information as opposed to just having to trust manufacturer kind of marketing data. And this will lead into how this can help professionals as well. And I don't want to seem like I'm overreaching. This is something that I would have loved when I was in clinic, because you have 5 major hearing aid manufacturers, and it has to be hundreds of products each when you consider all form factors, all generations. That is enough. That is more than enough to try and wrap your head around. And I don't really think it's possible to understand all of those products and be familiar with them from a clinical standpoint. So most audiologists then will focus on a smaller subset. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think that's fine. But patients will generally bring in a pamphlet of, hey, here's this product that I saw at a store or was in the newspaper, I saw online. What do you know about it? And this is something that would happen to me regularly. And all I could really say is, I don't know. It's an OTC product. I don't know. You can always claim that, oh, well, there isn't as much research behind it. It's going to have this problem or that problem. But I generally think those opinions are a little bit more biased towards, again, keeping the patient there to purchase a device that you're more comfortable with. Not necessarily that you make money off of, but that you're more comfortable with. So having information like this provides a sense, all right, a patient is interested in trying Lexi B2. I've never had my hands on it. Hopefully we can become a trusted, truly a trusted platform for providers as well, to go to HearAdvisor or Hearing Tracker and find that information on there, see how it performs, listen to it, get our hands-on experience as well as the objective experience, and then use that clinically to say, like, yes, okay, this patient is going to try this device, and again, I can tie that into my clinical practice and still have them come in to to perform different tests.
I think it's really interesting. We've talked about HearAdvisor and the benefits for end users and providers, but I actually see there's actually another subset of people here, which is the hearing aid companies. From all the work that you've been doing, I've seen actually some of these hearing aid companies now wear the HearAdvisor Expert Choice Award as a badge of honour. What's been the response from hearing aid companies? What response have you had?
I love that you brought that up, because that is something else that we weren't intending to do or interact in this way, but we have certainly had some companies reach out to us and ask for us to do like lab testing for them, to basically benchmark products that have already been made or are still in the research and development process. And companies have been very responsive, very helpful, and one, giving us feedback, because we're doing the best that we can, and there's lots of brilliant minds out there, of course. But then also, when we test a device and perhaps it doesn't perform consistent with our expectations, we'll reach out to the company and open up a broader discussion of, why are we seeing what we're seeing? Is this real? Is this maybe based on the hearing loss that we're using, our testing methods? Is this a way that you might be able to improve your product in the future? So we have had absolutely fantastic discussions like that with companies, and personally that has been a very good experience for me in just learning that there is this, the companies are receptive to this type of feedback, and it would be an amazing byproduct of what we initially set out to do if we could, for example, like raise the minimum bar of what a quality product is, because we're able to provide feedback to these, let's say, Chinese manufacturing companies. If we're getting some devices from overseas manufacturers, and we can give them feedback before the product even gets to market, that here's something that you can do with your gain structure to improve speech intelligibility, and then that goes back and that product then is sold to, let's say, 5 other products under a different name, or companies under a different name. The impacts of that are profound, to say the least.
Well, Steve, on that note, I'm actually going to get on a plane now and head over and bring our product with us as well, because I think, when I first heard about HearAdvisor and talking to you today, I can really see the benefit of actually being able to benchmark our technology with what other solutions out there. And I think it gives an opportunity for the industry to standardize these metrics. From our experience, every company would evaluate a product in a different way. And actually to have some sort of standardization would be really beneficial, to say actually you can compare apples to apples, and so that we can actually see which products do perform well and in what situations they perform well. So maybe it's not just for the big hearing aid companies, but also for startups and scale-ups like ourselves. So yeah.
Absolutely, and that's what we've seen. We have had quite a few startup companies reach out to us, and hopefully we've been able to provide great feedback. And again, that goes both ways. Our testing is something that we are constantly revisiting and considering to expand. For example, right now we are testing a single mild to moderate sloping hearing loss, and it's actually what's referred to as an N3 configuration. For example, that might not be a completely fair comparison on the reach of what prescription hearing aids can do compared to OTC. So that's something that we're considering in the future, testing more hearing losses, so the information that we provide covers a broader scope of what individuals actually face in the real world and how these technologies can help them. So the feedback goes both ways, and like I said, I keep saying it's been a very fun educational journey for me.
So Steve, I have one final question for you. Look, we've spoken about how the market is rapidly changing, and we're seeing many partnerships between consumer tech companies and hearing aid brands who are driving innovation in this category. Are there any other developments you're excited about in the coming months and years for the hearing market?
The first development that comes to mind is something that I think we were all holding our breath for, and that was actually not necessarily a technology but a pharmaceutical. And
right.
there's been lots of hope over the past few years that we would finally have an actual medication that could improve the performance or heal the hair cells within our cochlea, and some companies seem to get very close, and it was very promising, but I know they have since discontinued their research in that area. And there were a few. I know there was FX322 was the pharmaceutical. So honestly, that was the biggest one for me, and hopefully someone else will pick up where they left off. I know at some point someone will pick up where they left off. There's other great research going into low-level laser therapy. So personally, I would love to see that, as I know most of the people in this field would, because if we can improve the functionality of hair cells to any extent, not even like regenerate them completely, but if we could improve the functionality, the impacts of that would be far greater than any technology that at least we've currently been able to release.
Wow, that's really fascinating, and again, something that could completely change the market, because it's actually a prescription medicine or a treatment, which is
Absolutely.
different to a device in itself.
Yeah.
Lots of food for thought there. Well, thank you, Steve, for your time today. We really appreciate you taking the time to break down the different types of products in the hearing market, and also introducing our viewers to HearAdvisor. It's really evident that this platform will bring substantial advantages to providers, end users, and the industry as a whole. It will offer clarity on the capabilities of these products. And I actually, from what I've said previously, I expect that HearAdvisor could be a good step in standardizing how we benchmark devices and provide transparency on their performance and enable continual measured improvements. It actually drives competition, as you said earlier. If someone sees that their score is slightly lower in one area, it gives them an opportunity to understand where they can actually improve and innovate. For our viewers, if you'd like to find out more about HearAdvisor, you can find that information on the screen now by going to their website. But yes, just once again, I'd like to say thank you to you, Steve, for joining our Ask the Audio Experts video series. I've really enjoyed the conversation with you today.
Likewise, Rick. Thank you very much for having me on. It's been a pleasure.